Thank you all for coming here today. It's a pleasure to be at the Saudi Media Forum. Unfortunately, we've lost a panel member, so we're one down, but we have two excellent panelists who I'm sure will more than make up for it. So I really wanted to zoom in on sort of the diversity of the panel. And Jordi being Spanish, we were going to talk about how Spanish production has been at the forefront of the industry over the past 4 to 5 years. We've actually valued Spanish content to be worth 5.1 billion to the global streamers. Now, when we come into the region, the Middle Eastern region, there's lots of learnings we can take from the likes of Spain, Korea, India, etc., and we can apply that to the Middle East. But I wanted to start with Dick, because Dick's got over a quarter of a century worth of experience in Hollywood. And my CEO, Warren, talked about building Hollywood 2.0 yesterday on stage. And Dick, you've taken that experience, you've applied it to the region, you've been in the region for a few years as well. So how would you talk about the type of ways in which you can leverage those learnings from Hollywood, apply them to this region and the rest of the world?
Thank you for having me. I've been really fortunate in my career to touch a lot of parts of the business. Production, behind the scenes, a little on camera, believe it or not, and then mostly marketing. And marketing is the most important part of any production. If you're creating content, a lot of times people get very myopic, and they need to, because that's their baby. That's their movie or their television program or their content that they're creating. Is that okay? Better? And they forget that the most important part of creating whatever the content is they're creating is they have to think about the marketing of that when they're creating it. So I was able to, fortunately, when I came to the region 13 years ago in the UAE, between LA and the UAE, I took a lot of what I had learned over those years in marketing, and I brought it here. And a lot of people wanted to hear what I had to say. I was very flattered that in this region, they wanted to hear an American talk about, entertainment. And I think that the most important part of the entertainment business is that it's a communal business. I come from Hollywood. I've been there for a long time. But Hollywood isn't the Hollywood that it used to be, and we don't lead the world in creative anymore. We'd like to think that we do, but we don't. Technology has made it possible for all of you here in Riyadh and in this region to create your own content. The business in Hollywood has been damaged by strikes and a lot of economic mishaps over the years. And unfortunately, a lot of that business in Hollywood is never going to return to Hollywood. And many of my colleagues don't want to admit that. And they're the ones who are not going to be able to advance. But you have to embrace the change. You have to embrace what the new Hollywood is, the 2.0, like we talked about. And here in the region, the beauty of that is that local content that's in Arabic, it's in the native tongue, can be made, and it's very well done. But it needs to be marketed, and that's something that I would caution and encourage all creative people in Riyadh and in KSA and in the UAE and, listen, anywhere in the MENA region, to always remember when you're creating that, make sure you think about the marketing of it, and make sure you think about your cultural connections, and that's the most important part of it. Hopefully I've answered your question there.
Yeah, now I just want to double click into the marketing a little bit more. So being on the data side, we often predict successes and failures of a production. But what we can't predict is the marketing effort and what the upside could be from marketing campaigns. It's difficult. It's much more difficult. So how can you as producers get creative and work with partners, work with the streamers in creating assets, given the world we're in today with technology and AI, creating assets and using that as a vehicle to really push your own marketing campaign onto them?
Just do it. in the world that I come from, in the old days, and the old days wasn't that long ago. It could, it was before the pandemic, of course, but the old days is as near as 10 years ago. In Hollywood, my job, when I was the head of marketing at Sony Pictures Entertainment in LA for the off-network marketing, my job was to liaise between the studio, and I was a studio executive, and the creative people on the television shows like Seinfeld and Mad About You and Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and all those other programs that you might have heard of. My job was to make sure that all of the assets outside of the show were being produced and created and put in banks so that we could then work with the local television affiliates around the United States and then around the regions, the different regions that the shows were sold in, to have that content ready. In those days, we made very little local language content because it wasn't being thought of, unfortunately. That's one of the reasons why Hollywood is not what it was, and now it's in the hands of producers here. That if you're making promos in the United States, we need to be thinking this is going to be done and sold in a region. We need to do it in Farsi. We need to do it in Arabic. We need to do it in whatever, Italian, whatever language. So now creating those content that's outside of the IP or the program that you're working on is vital, vital.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Hussein, I'm going to come to you. So Hussein heads up Katara Studios, which I've had the privilege of visiting. There's some excellent projects you've worked on over the past few years. But one nearest and dearest to my heart is the football one. Now, it's a pain point for me being an English football fan. I don't like to bring up major sporting tournaments. But I wanted to get your sort of thoughts on what was your experience in producing the opening ceremony for the Qatari World Cup a few years back?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, it was obviously an honor and a privilege. And the idea was to really sort of bring cinematic sort of experience to an opening ceremony so that it becomes a form of entertainment. It's not just a formal ceremony. And we really wanted to inject Arabic culture into that. And it was the first time, obviously, that was ever done. And so to have Arabic in the opening ceremony was huge, not just for us, but for the entire Arab world. And the music that we produced around the World Cup, thankfully, went on to become #1 on the Billboard charts across the world. So there was a lot of successes that came out of that. And it was an opportunity for the world audience to really see Arabic culture in a different way. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with our films and our TV shows and all the other content that comes out from Katara Studios, is to really inject not just the Arab culture, but the talent, the language, and to show that this is now a player.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so then let's zoom out from sports and maybe zoom back into scripted and unscripted. We've seen through some of the data that we produced over the past year or so that the MENA region is now primed for that next Squid Game moment. It's seen some of the highest growth rates of any other region in the world. So you're talking 17x growth since 2020 for local domestic demand for Arabic content and 13x growth for international demand for Arabic content. How do you see yourself positioned and the MENA positioned for that growth opportunity? We talked about Seinfeld and come on to La Casa de Papel and the Spanish content market, but how do you see the MENA region creating that next big global hit, and what are the challenges and the growth opportunities surrounding that?
Well, you probably heard me say this quite a lot. I truly believe, and I think a lot of people share this, that we have entered the golden age of Arab content creation. I mean, this is truly our time. And we have a huge advantage. We have a common language in this region, 500 million Arabic speakers, so we have quite a substantial primary audience. The challenges are we're not seeing enough collaboration and co-productions. This really needs to be a concerted effort between everybody in the region to create Arabic content that not only can travel, but can resonate and really be a hit in the region first and foremost, and then go outside. And once that happens, and your data shows this, once we have that one breakthrough show or film, the floodgates will open, and that demand is going to multiply. So I think we really have to work together. We can get competitive later down the road.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the opportunity for Arab content is stronger now than it's ever been, and it's only going to get stronger. The quality of the production in the region is unbeatable. It really is well done, and it's changed so much in the last 15 years or so. So I applaud that. And listen, I hate to say that Hollywood is parts of it are dead. It will rebirth, but it's also very exciting to hear that from people who are creating the content in the region. And this is, listen, the Arab region, of course, there's the Chinese region. I mean, local cultures have the opportunity now to have your own content. It doesn't have to be subtitled. It doesn't have to be dubbed. They can create their own, and that is a very powerful cultural exchange. And I'm a storyteller. We're all in the entertainment business here. We're all storytellers. I don't care where you come from. And really, Hollywood is hip here. Hollywood is in your head. Trust me, I've been there. It ain't so nice. So Hollywood is really a frame of mind. And if you're creating content and you've got the right attitude, Hollywood lives in you. Hollywood is here in Riyadh. It's in Jeddah. It's in Abu Dhabi. It's everywhere. It's in Doha, Qatar, one of my favorite places.
Thank you, guys. So we've had Jordi join us. How you doing, Jordi? Good, yeah. So
Hello.
I wanted to sort of, you've been around the block, you've acted, produced, directed, and I want to gauge your understanding of your historic experience and how can you instill some of that knowledge on some of the young producers in the audience today and listening worldwide. What are some of the learnings you've had over the years, and what are some of those recipes for success, would you say, with regards to production, directing, and acting?
I mean, success. No, this is the word, success. I don't think in my case, I was not following directly some success. I didn't expect to be here, and as to be here of so many situations in my life that it really went beyond my expectations. I've learned a lot because I'm a good observer and I like to listen. And I like to listen to you, I like to listen to this gentleman, points of view, dialogue. I do believe that dialogue is a very, very important tool today, dialogue, face to face, It's not the same thing doing a Zoom with somebody in Australia than going to Australia and feel. Is more than words, it's a feeling. It's what you feel, adding something to what these two gentlemen were talking about, I do believe that a universal story doesn't know frontiers, right? How you do it, there is the dialogue coming in between Hollywood, as he says, or between England, or between you and us, East and West, North and South. They say it's globalization. So, let's bring this dialogue. Globalization is not only about an algorithm, because that is pure globalization, digital technology globalization. And that we know, and that has its own path, but nothing, absolutely nothing like to encounter another one, like it happened here 2 days ago with Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin, face to face in a neutral place. And that, I think, that is the key, and the way to participate, Hollywood, with Saudi Arabia, call it however you want, is the story, you know, because if we start talking about local, that's a bad word. Local. I mean, what is local? If I see a movie done in, I don't know, in Korea, I don't care, about a mother that loses a son, that's a universal story. You can bring it here. You can go with that story all over the world, because everybody knows, all women know what is being a mother and a wife, or a husband and a father. Everybody of us had a father. And at the same time I say the word father, all of you, you're picturing the face of your father, because we had a father. So I think it's about not being selfish about cultural items to be told. Universal stories.
That's fascinating. When I met you in the lunch hall, you said you're a man of few words, but they were beautiful words. So thanks for your input there. Guys, anything to add? Because I think that was some great stuff there.
No, it's spot on. I mean, you know, universal stories, as Jordi said. So, and you know, going back to what Dick was saying earlier, the platforms have broken down the language barrier. People will be happy to watch Arabic content anywhere in the world if the story is right, if it's produced properly, you know, if the acting, if you've ticked all the boxes. And we come from, in the Arab world, we have a long history of storytelling. We are oral storytellers, always have been. And we have a treasure trove of IP in this part of the world that's been untouched, genuinely. Not only historically, but even contemporary stories. And I think a lot of the world are fascinated by this part of the world, but they haven't seen enough. And that's what we're here to do, is really tell those stories to a global audience from our perspective. And as Jordi said, it's a universal language.
Alhamdulillah, I think that you said the right, perfectly, that it's universal stories. Again, coming from Hollywood and the American point of view and in the entertainment business, for forever, it was Hollywood dictating that. You know, listen, Egypt had, in the region, Egypt was the filmmaking capital in the region, forever as well. You know, the fact that that local content can be created and listened to and watched all over the world, that's something that we're on Hollywood, we're just catching up to. You know, it doesn't have to come out of our point of view. It doesn't have to be our stories. You know, there's so much in this region, and I'll just speak about the Arab world in general. And I've got my own personal affection for the Arab region, but there's so many amazing stories that the rest of the world does not know. Cultural stories, you know, Ibn Battuta, and just great stories that can make really rich content that anyone can relate to, because it's about exploration, it's about community, it's about sharing your culture. That's what the world wants today. I don't care what the news tells you. It's all bad news. We're in the business of making good stories happen, all of us in this room, and that's the most important thing.
No, it's fascinating. Jordi, when you talked about relationships, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, and we talk about some of the recent success stories we've seen from the region, we did some analysis, and Al Rawabi School for Girls on Netflix contributed over $100 million to Netflix last year. And it's quite simply put that it's about girls going to school, and everyone can relate to that. And that's why it probably traveled so well internationally, whether you're a mother or a father or a girl going to school or just graduated, it has that resonance.
I think more than ever, we are informed about how people live all over the world. And the way these women are dressed, it's known all over the world, you know. And so that's a chance, you know, to, as this gentleman says, we don't even need subtitles today. Thank God that has been approved by the citizens, you know. They can, I mean, no, we need subtitles, but the content can be from anywhere, again, you know. So I think the problem in entertainment, I'm just saying in entertainment, and the word is very wide, entertainment. I, it's like, I do understand that. I don't care if it's a spaceship going to Mars, because we all know that, you know, there's a lot of things happening in space, you know, a lot of things in orbit. So what I'm saying is that doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you're from. You know, it's one. It's one world. It's one man. It's one woman. It's one life on Earth. So we should make it more simple.
Jordi, you also touched on the synergies that you have with face-to-face interactions and the creative decision-making that takes place in the room. So I got a question for all of you. With AI and technology perhaps potentially changing the way we produce content and interact face-to-face, do you see that as a challenge or a benefit for future production?
I'm not going to overcook this. I mean, there's been a lot of discussions about AI. AI is just a great set of tools for us to do things better, quicker, and accelerate. So instead of knocking out, you know, maybe 3 projects a year, you're going to knock out 10 projects a year. I don't think it's going to be anything more than that for the foreseeable future. And this sort of idea that it's going to change everything, yes, it'll change everything, but our input and how we make films and how we make TV series is really not going to change. It's the same thing. We just have more powerful tools to do it now.
I agree that it's a great tool. It can be a great creative tool. But I think that AI has to be regulated. It has to be taken care of very carefully. It can be a very productive tool, but it can also be a very destructive weapon. And it can hurt a lot of people. So I think that as powerful, and it is not going away, it's going to get better, which means it's going to be more dangerous. You know, there's got to be a good sensibility when you're using AI, especially in the creative world. Listen, in LA, there's a lot of people a lot of very big talent who are sitting back and saying, wait a minute, that's not me, and I didn't say that. Okay, there needs to be some very serious guidelines set up, and not just for Hollywood, but for everybody. And that means for the news organizations as well. It's a very big, powerful, amazing tool, but it can also be very sinister, and we've got to watch out for that.
Yes. Somebody was talking the other day, and somebody like 2 years ago, very important that we all know, was talking at a meeting of the G7 about algorithmics and technocratics, which means democracy of the technology and ethics of the algorithm. That is a good point, and I'm not going to say the name of the person at the G7 2 years ago in Italy. That's one thing. IA, as my colleagues say, is a beautiful tool to make things easier, quicker, with less expenses. Of course, you need to teach your IA unit, you know, and it's a dialogue between, and it's nothing new, actually. I mean, we always talked about man versus machine, man versus machine. And this started appearing in literature in Europe, talking about what's going to happen in the 40s. Like, I mean, forget about 1984, George Orwell, that's old. But in the 40s, there were literature, because that was the only medium, I mean, painting, literature, that was the only medium to express the future. And there were novels like Us, called Us, that basically it was a science fiction novel that talks about what are we gonna become. But IA, I think today is a great tool, unless we don't we don't make the mistake to think that what we're seeing is real, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a man is a man, a woman is a woman. And this is the problem, that if, as this gentleman was saying, if we don't control the machine is going to control us, for sure. And then that could affect to society. Because if the IA unit sees a specific character in a certain form, everybody's going to copy that behavior. And it's happening already with technology, with social media, you know, that you see a lot of faces, but at the end they are all the same. So with that, IA has to be very careful regarding human species. Punto.
And I also think that, like the world and like other industries, attorneys and lawyers are going to be very busy, because I think that rights issues are things that have to be looked after very carefully. If you create something and it's yours and you make your billions of dollars, and somebody comes along and their AI tool makes something that looks almost exactly like what you've created, okay, you've got an issue here. And that, you know, faces and everything. I think it's, listen, I love AI. I think it's, and I've got a colleague here who uses it all the time. It's an amazing tool. And what does it do? It allows young people who are really creative and have got amazing ideas to create something that they don't have the big production tools for. They can create a video and it's perfect and it's what they need. That is what it should be used for. That's helping a young creative person. I don't care where you are in the world. If you've got the access to that technology, that's an amazing tool for you, because it's going to help you tell your story. But on the other end of it, again, it just needs to be looked after.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've got time for one other subject. Now, we're in quite a privileged position to be at the center of the wheel with regards to working with producers like yourself, but then also on the other side, we get a lot of requests from the streaming platforms and the linear broadcasters. And one of the most asked questions last year was in the IP adaptation space. So I wanted to zoom in on the adaptation of video games. We're in the Kingdom. I think it's around 2/3 of the demographic of gamers between the age of 15 to 24, over a quarter of women, so it's become a very inclusive area of the industry. And there's been an acceleration in demand for gaming, especially within the Kingdom. And Dick, you and I were talking about some of the adaptations, esports. When we think back to the last few years, you think some of the biggest Hollywood hits, Sonic, Mario, TV content such as The Last of Us, The Witcher, etc. It's all come from adapted video games. So I just wanted to zoom in a little bit there and get your thoughts on that space.
Listen, we personally, myself and my partner that's here as well in the forum this year, we believe, and a lot of our brethren in Hollywood believe, that the games entertainment business is the next iteration of Hollywood, because it is generational. People that are our age are playing video games that they played for the last 20 years. They're now playing it with their children. And it's not just little boys doing it, it's men, and it's a lot of women. A lot of women are gamers, which was very sexy to me, because I sat back and I said, okay, I'm an entertainer and I'm a marketer. And there's an enormous audience for this next generation of storytelling, with the avatars, with the storylines. It's got a built-in audience of tens of millions of people waiting for the next story. So from a Hollywood standpoint, we believe that that is the next step. And speaking about KSA, the amount of people that are gamers in just this area of Riyadh is staggering. There's an audience right there. as a marketer and a content creator, wow, am I ever loving that. So it's amazing. Yeah, games entertainment is the next step. That is different than esports. Esports is a similar, but it's a different business. Games entertainment is the main bucket. And that's being blended with esports. There's two different animals there. You got to look into that. But yeah, great stuff. Great opportunities.
Guys, any final thoughts on not necessarily the games, but the adaptation space? Could be novels, could be books, or games.
Well, I mean, I've touched off this. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of the IP that we have available in the Arab world.
Yep.
There's a, you know, if we adapt for the next 30 years, we're not going to finish. There's a lot there. So I think we need to be doing more of that. Gaming, I haven't got a clue, so I'm going to pass on that.
Jordi, any final thoughts? Any final thoughts before we head over to the audience? No? Any final comments?
No, that's all. No?
The show must go on.
Show must go on.
We've got a question.
Hi, my name is Wala Tili. I'm a co-founder of a digital media company. I would like to challenge a little bit and pick up your brain on the notion of good story travel, especially in a time where we're in a very unique time where we see more polarization between liberal mindsets and right wing and left wing, and how much gap is becoming, especially lately in the past 10 years. Like, there's so many things that Hollywood produced along the way that is basically not universal at all, and trying to enforce a super liberal kind of perspective. Also, the rise of nationalism and the gap, also the conflict that we see between East and West, and the different values that both sides are presenting, and the rise of the South again. All these things, do you think that it's going to be in favor of traveling stories, or is it going to be a hurdle in the future?
I'll just very quickly, I think that's very specific to the Western world. I don't think we have those issues here. And for us as Arabic content producers, Western markets should be a bonus for us. Our primary market is Arabic speakers, and then East. Indonesia, Malaysia, China, the global South generally should be our secondary market. So this kind of liberal mentality, and we have a much closer value system to the people in the East than we do to the West. That's not a slur against the Western world. So I think what you asked is very specific to a Western audience. I don't think it applies as much to us, and especially with us going East.
I agree. And to address it directly, listen, we're all creators in this room. We're all content creators. We're all entertainers. We're all storytellers. At the end of the day, you want to tell good stories, whatever they may be. Drama, comedy, whatever, love stories. It's about people. Unfortunately, and I'll just speak about politics for 30 seconds. In my country right now, the rise of nationalism is a very ugly thing. It's based in one world, and that is hate, and that is judgment, and that is prejudice. And I'm a proud American and a loyal American, but I am not so proud that I can't say that my country just can't get it right now. We've got a lot of things to learn. And again, let's bring it back to our world and Hollywood and out of the politics of it. But those of us who are in the entertainment business in the West, in Hollywood, those of us who accept the change and are open-minded will survive. Those who don't, won't. That's just the way it is. It's survival of the fittest. And a lot of my colleagues, unfortunately, are falling victim to that because they do buy into that. They buy into the division. I've been very fortunate to have family who worked here in the kingdom 50 years ago. My father was in North Africa 40 years ago. I'm very fortunate to have been, as an American, introduced to the Arab world and, and the amazing culture that is across this region. I have an affection for it. I understand it. I hope, inshallah, that my countrymen will open their minds and accept more, and it will happen. It's an evolution. It will happen. So I think that the best thing that I can say is don't let that cloud anything. Yes, it's ugly. I hate it myself. But we have to all work together to make it a better world and more understanding. That's just my belief. That's the way I was raised. And that's why I love the region. That's why I'm here.
Well said.
Here we go.
All right, a quick question for Jordi. So, and context to the question, there's a lot of young, globally, but if we focus on the Arabic region, actors who are getting roles in global productions. So rewind back, I think 2002, 2003, you play a role in a global franchise in Bad Boys. Amazing performance, by the way. I'm a big fan of that work. Looking back at that now, what advice would you give to yourself at the end of 2003 when the movie comes out? And therefore, what advice would you give now to a young actor that is Spanish or is Arabic that lands a role in a global franchise and thinks about what should I do next?
I only say, only this one knows what's going to happen. So that is the most sincere advice I can give. The rest is pure technical bureaucracy, or call it however you want. But at the end, listen, I come from a very normal family, very extremely normal family on the outside of a city. And God wanted me to be here now, sitting here. So what I would say to not only to actors, to directors, somebody that has a vision and an idea, is to keep tracking on it, you know, because we all have great ideas constantly every day. But those ideas, if they don't follow you the next day, they are not good ideas. The good idea, the good vision, the dream, call it however you want it, is the one that follows you even if you don't want.
Thank you, Jordi.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Can we give our panelists a massive round of applause? They've been excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.